Good morning. My name is Bob Gordon, a dedicated member of this congregation, and I'm subbing for David Selzer, who can't make it, and I haven't prepared my usual comments, but this will have to do. Please take your seats. Please turn off your cell phones and take this opportunity to greet each other. Welcome to the Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. We honor you wherever you are in your spiritual path and know that there is something wonderful here this morning for each and every one of you. And one of the things that's so wonderful is that we're going to hear from our wonderful minister, Murray Shelton, in her sermon. And you all seem fine and attentive. And the words to our morning chant will be on the screen, followed by the words of the spiritual mind treatment. And who is it today? Michael Hart will be addressing us with her remarks to take you deeply into your own center. Thank you.
Spirit, guide my day, open my heart to live your way. Teach me to hear your voice, open my mind to the freedom of choice. Spirit, guide my day, open my heart, live your way. Teach me to hear your voice, and open my mind to the freedom of choice. One more time, Spirit. Open my heart to live your way. Teach me to hear your voice and open my mind to the freedom of choice. Deep nature it comes. I am deep nature.
just opening to this very moment. Not the past, not the future, but the here, the now that is endless and infinite. I bring my attention to that great spirit, to that nature that is perfection expressed, that knows only order, that in being a system of systems, neutral and knowing only order, only what we call good, it also extends itself to uncover, to include, to embrace, like the great and everlasting arms, all that there is of personality in the blade of grass, in the animal, in the human being, that one life living itself, giving of itself endlessly into every one of its creations. And therefore I know that because I am here by the very right of my existence, I am a part of that one life, that infinite order expressing. And as I know this for myself, I know this for each one in this room and within the sound of my voice, and for those far beyond who consider themselves a part of this community also. Each one a blessing, sometimes in disguise, sometimes like the fog unfolding itself to reveal the blue sky. Each one a consciousness that every time it enters the room brings its own energy, an energy of courage, an energy of kindness, an energy of inclusivity, or their opposites. Each one a choice in every moment, sometimes aware of it, sometimes less aware of it. And so I speak my word for myself and each one within the sound of my voice. I call forth for each one of us that opening in our consciousness that enables us to be the energy of blue sky when needed and of fog when needed. That enables us to be that place of courage, of kindness, of the knowing of order, of the knowing of good, no matter the appearances, so that each of us becomes that place for life itself to express more fully, more perfectly, more wholly in every realm. And I celebrate this. I give thanks for that within each of us, which is always there, unobstructed, undiseased, whole, perfect, and complete. I give thanks for its greater expression here and now. And I release this, my word, to the activity of that law which always and forever knows only to act, to agree, to support, to maintain and sustain the greater and greater expression of good. And so it does now. And so it is. Amen.
I am from the Father, it comes. I am the Father, I am great Spirit, and I and great Spirit are one. And all that I am from great Spirit, it comes. I am great Spirit of one. I am deep nature of one. And I and deep nature are one. And all that I am from deep nature it comes. I am deep nature of one. I am the Father of one. I am the Father of one. And all that I am from the Father it comes. I am the Father of one. 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 Yeah. Oh, I love that. Setchko and Mies and Amanda. That is choice. Oh, and we have Rick Walt and Robin Zickel. Yeah. I couldn't resist, you know. We're all fathers, so we had to be here today, right? And just bring the vibe of the music that we share together on Father's Day. Father's Day is a really special day for me because I loved my father. He was my best friend in the whole world. And he's been gone about 5 years, and I brought his picture on the altar. Well, it used to be a tradition here. I guess I'm kind of like... We didn't mention it. Oh, well, we'll bring it back next year. Oh, there's one. Yay! Papa. Yeah. So I love my dad. So this is for my dad. Takes the darkness away. Father who teaches the bird to fly, builder of rainbows up in the sky, father of loneliness and pain, father of love and father of rain. Ooh, ooh, sing it with us. Father of day and father of night, father of black and father of white, father who builds the mountains so high, who shapes the clouds up in the sky, father of time and the father of dreams, father who turns the rivers and streams. Father of grain and father of wheat, father of cold and the father of heat, father of air and the father of trees, dwells in our hearts and our memories, father of minutes and the father of days, father whom we most solemnly praise. You to smile. Ooh, ooh, yeah. Father of night, father of day, father who takes the darkness away, father who teaches the bird to fly, the builder of rainbows up in the sky, father of loneliness and pain, father of love and father of rain. Happy Father's Day.
Thanks, you guys. Stephen, I loved the guitar solo. That was great. And Bodhi, I think that was just a little hint of Dylan there, kind of in the way you were doing that. Really? Really? Well, no wonder. Okay. Good morning. I'm Reverend Mary Shelton. I'm standing in for Reverend Carol Huntley while she's in France with a tour she's leading, and then she's going to stay for a honeymoon with her husband, Paul. But first, we want to welcome all those of you who are here for the first time, those of you who are newcomers and guests. We have a gift for you. So this is your day. You've won something already just by arriving. Our membership team members are up here with packets of info for you, and in the packet you're going to find a blue card. It's like our email list card. If you fill that out and turn it in at the membership table, you get this gift, this little booklet called What Religious Science Teaches, and it's kind of a Q&A, gives you a little bit of information about our philosophy and who we are. So and that's it. That's the whole requirement for this morning. So if you would like to let us know that you're here for the first time, so you have the option of getting the gift as well, just give a wave, and our people would love to come and give you a packet of info. One here? Anybody else? Don't be shy. We won't follow you home. Okay, good. Thank you. Let's welcome our guest. I'm glad you're here this morning. And I especially want to also say Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. So for all you guys who are dads, would you please stand up? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You guys, I have something for you. 11 is the perfect number, because that's all I have of these little goodies. I was trying to print about 30 of them this morning, but they went astray. They're just little Father's Day acknowledgments. Mark, would you take these and give one to every one of the dads standing up? And also, I want to give some attention to those of you who are granddads. So just as soon as you get your card, if you are not a granddad, I'll have you sit down when you get your card, but I want to make sure you get a little card. So if you're not a granddad, you can sit down. Now, all you guys probably are granddads, right? Yeah? Are you all granddads? Yes? All right, that's great. So let's give the granddads a hand. And for any of you who are great-granddads, would you remain standing? No great-granddads this morning. Okay, all right. Well, thank you. And I also want to do an acknowledgement, too, for any of you who were stepdads, adoptive dads, foster dads. If anybody did not get acknowledged who was one of those, would you guys stand up? None of those today? Okay, and for all of you moms who served as dads at some point, would you stand up? No moms? Oh, here's one here, and I know Amanda's one too, who did sometimes. Yay, thank you, moms. All right, so we're honoring today that principle of father energy as we talk about the things we're going to be talking about today. So I want to review for just a moment that we're in a series this year with all of the centers for spiritual living all over, celebrating 100 years of science of mind, which is our philosophy or our teaching. Ernest Holmes' first book was published 100 years ago. Ernest Holmes is our founder. His first book, Creative Thought, was published way back then. And his ministry evolved from that. It wasn't his intention to actually create a church, but sometimes Spirit has things in mind for us that we haven't yet figured out. We have to catch up. So eventually his students let him know what he was doing was church. And it eventually became a church. So that's how the centers started. And for the month of June, our theme is spiritual wisdom and how to follow it. We all have spiritual wisdom. We don't always listen to it. Anybody ever ignore just something intelligent that popped into your mind and then regret it later, right? So we want to talk about actually following it. And today I want to talk about discovering the magic of making deposits to your spiritual bank account. And you might have imagined that you have a spiritual bank account. I don't know if yours looks quite like that. But imagine that every time someone let you in on the freeway and you gave them a wave of thanks, $1 was deposited into your checking account. How many more thank you acknowledgments would we be having out there? People would be falling over themselves to thank anybody. And every time you allowed somebody to get in front of you who wanted to move over, you got $5 deposited into your account. Wouldn't we be generous and kind to the people around us because we could immediately see the results? Well, what happens with those things is that we actually are making deposits into our spiritual bank account when we do them. But we can't immediately see the balance growing, and so we don't rush to do those things because we don't immediately see what we're creating in the benefit of doing those for ourselves. Does this make sense? So let's talk about dads a little bit. Here we have 4 generations. We have great-granddad, granddad, dad, and grandson, great-grandson, son. 4 generations. A weary father who had 3 notoriously unruly children was asked once if he had it to do again, would he still have kids? And he said, oh, yes. Not the same ones. I think that kind of humor, that darkness of that humor kind of encapsulates some of what we get from dads sometimes when they're playful with us. So I want to talk about fathering, finances, and spirituality, because you might be interested to know that some of those things work in similar ways. So when we think about fathering, and this is true for all parenting that we do, but for fathering, traditionally, fathers have been busy with work. It is a consistent investment of time. So this dad here, right now, is doing the consistent investment in this little one. And he will be surprised at how much investing will be required to grow this little person up. And it is cumulative. So this great-granddad is experiencing the benefit of compounding interest. He has expanded his investment over time, not only to his son, but to his grandson, and now to his great-grandson, and he's reaping the benefits of all of that investing that he's done. Would you agree? All right. And then we have granddad. Now, granddad, when he was this age, as his son, had to decide, as this one has had to decide, is it a risk worth taking, becoming a dad? Or maybe he didn't even have that option. Maybe it surprised everybody. And instead, he has to decide moment by moment which interest he's going to show, which things he's going to invest his time in. What is a risk worth taking when deadlines at work are pressing and maybe mom is feeling neglected? How much investment is he going to do with the kids? Balancing it out, what's a risk worth taking? Does this make sense? Now, we experience these things with our money. We understand how that works with money. If you're doing investments, we look at the risks and the benefits. If we're putting money into our checking account or our IRA or whatever it might be, we realize that that grows over time. So the interest that we give to our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, the interest we show grows these kinds of benefits. But so does our interaction with everybody else grow our spiritual bank account. And every time we make a small gesture of support or encouragement or kindness or love, we're making deposits in that spiritual bank account. And we've probably made many, many, many deposits over our lifetime. But we've also done some withdrawals. So we do withdrawals when we need support or we need help or we need wisdom or encouragement. But we also do withdrawals when we're unkind, when we're thoughtless, when we aren't interested, when we're distracted. So we want to make more deposits than we do withdrawals, obviously, because it's important to us to make sure that we've got a good balance in our spiritual account, as well as with our kids and with our checking account or our investments. In Living the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes wrote, "The divine creator has deposited love at the center of every man's being, whether he knows it or not. And this love, which I now use, is not only the greatest sentiment in the world, it is the supreme power. It is the perfect law. It is reality." And what I said in the morning prayer with the team was, not only is that divine presence a presence of love so powerful that it's more deep and vast and amazing than anything we could hope for or imagine in our wildest dreams. If we take it as far out as we can imagine being loved and being the energy of love, it's so much more than that. And that's what we're made of, and that's all. That vibration of love, of care, that's the truth of being, and that's what we're made of, and that's all that we're made of. So to the degree that we express it or allow it or grow our awareness of it, to that degree it expands in our experience. And not only in our experience as we're interacting in the world, but in the inner qualities that give us self-esteem and self-regard. So every time we make an act of courage in the world, we grow that capacity in ourselves, not only to be more courageous, but also to love and respect ourselves more. And ideally, our dads become models of this for us. They are, hopefully, people of principle, people who are courageous and fair, people who are encouraging and loving, and also firm, and will tell us the truth when we need it. Now, all of us have those qualities, but those are kind of ideal visions of the good dad. And so we are, in essence, also fathering ourselves. And the question becomes, how much soul wealth do you have? How much courage can you draw from? How much compassion or love or kindness or just civility or open-mindedness or generosity or gratitude is available in your spiritual bank account? If your spiritual bank account is abundant, then you have reserves when somebody is not nice to you, but you don't immediately have to turn around and be not nice to them or defensive. When your spiritual reserves are abundant, you have energy to give to somebody else, or encouragement, or attention, or love. When your reserves are depleted, then we begin to resent those things when other people need them, because we need them too, and we feel low on energy and spiritual substance. We don't have the bandwidth as much to deal with it. Or we might actually be overdrawn in our spiritual account. This happens when we're people who always give but never receive, don't let ourselves receive. It also happens when we've been in stress for a long, long time, or when we've just developed habits of not really paying attention to anybody else or thinking about anybody else. We get overdrawn in the process. You'd think that when we're putting so much attention on ourselves that we'd actually be growing something, but that isn't really always how it works. If we're treating ourselves badly, certainly we're depleting ourselves. But when we're stepping outside of ourselves to extend to others, we actually start to refill our account a little bit, as well as, of course, taking care of us. Is this making sense, what I'm saying? Are you following me here? Okay. So also, in this thing called You, Ernest Holmes said this, and this is my favorite book of Ernest Holmes ever, This Thing Called You. You, like all others, are seeking the joy of living. You wish to be needed, to be loved, to be included in the great drama of life. This urge is in every individual. It is in everything. Your soul belongs to the universe. Your mind is an outlet through which the creative intelligence of the universe seeks fulfillment. This is your starting point for investigating the meaning of those impulses longings and desires which accompany you through life. What is the meaning? We as human beings are meaning-making beasts. We want to look at something and understand it. We want it to be understandable. We want to make sense out of it. And interestingly for us, our sense of meaning of our own lives, of our own being, of ourselves, comes out of participation. Not being a spectator on the sidelines, but actually taking the risks, actually making the investments, actually consistently making those deposits in our spiritual bank account. So when crisis hits, then, what happens? Do we mistake appearances for reality? You know, when our spiritual bank account is overdrawn, appearances are so compelling that it's really hard to pull ourselves back into our spiritual awareness, because maybe we haven't rested in that awareness for quite a while. We become easily tempted to doing things the easy way, or hurting other people to forward ourselves. Or do we struggle to overcome appearances? We know they're appearances, but it's awfully hard work to get past them. That's when we're depleted. That's when we're low in resistance and we're struggling morally and more. When we're tempted to take the easy way, and it's a balance between whether we will or we won't. So how do we surf through those times when we are depleted or we feel spiritually bankrupt? Well, first we want to cultivate our spiritual riches. And the way that we cultivate our spiritual riches is in our spiritual practice and also in our outward interaction with the world, the people that we're encountering. So as we draw on spiritual reserves, we begin to reduce that stress. It might mean going to a practitioner and having prayer. It might mean going to a doctor or a therapist. It might mean having time with a best friend where you just let your hair down so that we can begin to refill our coffers. It means looking for beauty. It means looking for joy and not working quite so hard at everything. Looking for what's already been given. Sometimes we overlook what's been given because we're so focused on our struggle. And yet, if we look around, there's a lot that's been given that's for free. Every breath we take, our clouds, our sky, all of the nature that's around us, the people in our lives, are they perfect? Nah, maybe not according to our definition, but they're part of our spiritual food. And we are then contributing back to them as we get replenished. So we begin to live from the meaning that we want more of. We want things to matter, and we want to matter. We want to make a difference. We want to have that leadership, that courage, that accountability. So we have to begin to practice those things even when we're tempted not to, because that grows our strength in being able to rely on them all the time. First, we have to choose it. Then we have to practice it. And we also have to include the practice of celebration, beauty, gratitude, and not forget those things. I came across just very recently an interview that Sarah Silverman did with Christian Picciolini. Sarah Silverman is a stand-up comedian. You may know her. She hasn't always been my favorite because it always seemed to me that there was kind of a snarky underside to what she was doing, and I didn't like that so much. Well, apparently, Sarah Silverman had a near-death experience. And as a result of that, she shifted that to the point where she's even somewhat embarrassed by some of what she said before, which she thought was kind of glib. And now she's begun having a show, and I don't know what the show is normally, but in this particular instance, she was interviewing a man who had been a white supremacist. And so she's talking to him about that. And so regardless of your political opinions about what's going on right now, because the beginning of this might unnerve you, that's not what the message is here. So I want you to hang in here with me. This is about 8 minutes long, but it's really worth hearing. So you up for this? Yeah? Okay. Here we go.
My guest tonight was a skinhead at 14 and a neo-Nazi leader by the time he was 16. He now devotes his life to helping people leave extremist groups. Please welcome Christian Picciolini.
Can you hear it?
Can
you hear it okay?
Your last name. Picciolini.
Like a peach.
Picciolini.
Like a peach.
You're like a peach.
Oh.
Okay, let's get into this. You've said that we have a homegrown terrorism epidemic in this country. Can you explain that?
Yeah. Since 9/11, more Americans have been killed on U.S. soil by white supremacists than by any other foreign or domestic terrorist group combined. Yet we still don't call it terrorism. We call it, you know, fluffy words like white nationalism or the alt-right. Those are words that they've given themselves, by the way. Let's just call it what it is. It's white supremacy and it's white terrorism.
Yes. Sorry. I don't usually start applause breaks, but that's so true. It's their, I think you said this, they rebrand themselves, and that's dangerous. It is what it is.
And actually, we started that process 30 years ago. We recognized we were turning away even average American white racists. Shaved heads and the swastikas were apparently too much for them. And we said, we need to look like them, we need to sound like them, and we need to be where they are. So we traded in our boots for suits. We went to college campuses, recruited there, got jobs in law enforcement, went to the military. And here we are 30 years later, and you know, they look like Brooks Brothers.
That should not be a campaign for Brooks Brothers, but it did cross my mind. How does one become a skinhead at 14? Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. I don't do those referrals anymore. You know, I was a lonely kid. I came from a good family, but my parents are immigrants who came from Italy, and they worked really hard. And I was lonely and felt abandoned growing up. And one day, when I was 14, I was standing in an alley smoking a joint. It is not the gateway drug to white supremacy.
It
Let me just say that.
No, this is not against weed, because weed is also the drug of peace. Sorry.
But America's first neo-Nazi skinhead leader walked up to me. He snatched a joint from my mouth, and he said, "That's what the Jews and the communists want you to do to keep you docile." I was 14. I didn't even know what a communist or a Jew was, and I definitely didn't know what the word docile meant. But it was the first time in my life that I felt like somebody was paying attention to me, and I wanted to belong. And in fact, most people that I've worked with to disengage from hate groups, they'll all answer the same thing when I ask them why did they join. Because they wanted to belong. They were marginalized, and that was the group that brought them in.
Yeah, I interviewed Megan Phelps-Roper, and she said a similar, and you're friends with her,
She's
right?
a friend of mine. She's great.
I remember her saying in that interview, like, these aren't bad people. They're people who, in a vulnerable time in their lives, were swayed by bad ideas.
That's true. And I think that that's the secret. The secret to stopping people from becoming extremists is to understand that in most cases, they're not monsters. They're broken human beings who are doing monstrous things.
What is the process? How do you do that? How do you lure people away from extremism?
Well, I don't tell them that they're wrong. I don't argue with them. I don't debate them. Instead, I listen. And I listen for those potholes. You know, what is it that deviated them down that path? And then I become a pothole filler. I get people job training or life coaching, tattoo removal, mental health counseling. And when they start to feel more resilient, when they're more confident about themselves, then they don't have to blame the other anymore. But I don't stop there. I challenge their ideology, and I introduce them to the people that they think that they hate. And the demonization that happens in their head, the prejudice, just starts to crack once they actually meet the people, because they start to humanize and they start to relate to them.
So this is a picture of you at Dachau giving a Heil Hitler. How did you eventually walk away from that life?
That guy looks freaked out right there. Just
He
realizing
does.
that. So it was '92 when that picture was taken, and I was in a band performing in Germany, singing racist music. How I got out was in '95. I opened a record store after having a son, 2 sons, and getting married at 19, and starting to question, you know, what my priorities were. Was I this hate monger, or was I, you know, a father and a husband? Was my community the one that I'd manufactured around me to boost my own ego, or was it the one I'd physically given life to? And I started to question these things, and then at the record store, I started to meet people that I'd kept outside my social circle. Even though I was selling white power music, I also sold punk rock and hip hop, and I started to meet blacks and Jews and gay people for the first time in my life and have a meaningful dialogue. And I realized, gosh, they're more similar to me than I am with these folks who I've surrounded myself with.
I'm always inspired when people change with new information, they let themselves be changed. Okay, so when you hear the leaders of our nation speaking, what do you hear?
You know, people talk about dog whistles, you know, using code words to appeal to a certain base. I hear a bullhorn. I hear it loud and clear. So many of the things that are coming out of this administration are things that I used to say 30 years ago. But they're using slightly more palatable words. Instead of saying, you know, the Jew-owned media, now they call it the liberal media. Or instead of calling it the global Jewish conspiracy, they call it globalism.
With everything that Trump has done, I have to say when he came out on Holocaust Remembrance Day and wouldn't mention Jews, I was shaken a little bit, because that was really loud.
Yeah. Or equivocating white supremacists to protesters of neo-Nazis.
Both sides.
Yeah. Good people on both sides, right? Isn't that what he said? Yeah.
Good potential people on both sides.
But see, here's the thing with that, Sarah, is there may have been people there that looked normal, but they've changed. They're not going to be marching with hoods and shaved heads anymore, and there were people there waving flags, but the people who were there, you know, for Confederate monuments, that's bull. They were not there for free speech. They were not there for Confederate monuments. They only march in areas where they know progressives live. That's why they marched in Berkeley, and that's why they marched in Charlottesville. They want to provoke Nazis or any extremists. They love two things: silence and violence. If we're silent, they grow, they fester. We sweep it under the rug, and then we, you know, tell ourselves, oh, wow, I'm surprised that that exists. Rallies like Charlottesville have been happening for decades, every month across, you know, the United States. And I hate to be fatalistic, but they also love violence, because when we are aggressive against them in a violent way, they use it as a victim narrative, and they use that to recruit. And they say, you see, we're not the haters, we're the ones who are hated. So do what they did in Boston, and 40,000 people should surround every Nazi rally and show them that we see them, we hold them accountable, but at the same time, you know, we're going to offer them a lifeline. Come on out if you want.
Come on out, join us. Join us. What advice would you give us?
Because compassion is what changed me, I challenge your audience, go out there today, and I challenge you too, even though you do this already, is find somebody that's undeserving of your compassion and give it to them, because I guarantee you that they're the ones that need it the most.
Christian Pucciolini, thank you so much. You're so special.
So when we feel like we're helpless to what's happening in the world, in any area, and we're upset or angry or resistant to that, maybe what is needed is compassion. I know that isn't easy. It's something that we have to draw deeply on our spiritual bank account to be able to bring forth, particularly if we're frightened, or something that's been said or done is particularly horrific. But we do find that resistance brings more resistance. Unless it's very nonviolent and compassionate, then it seems to make a difference over time. And so we want to let our light shine so brightly that others can see their way out of the dark. Albert Schweitzer said, sometimes our light goes out, but is blown into flame by another human being. Each of us owes deepest thanks to those who have rekindled this light. And so probably for all of us, somebody helped kindle a light for us. I know one person that did it for me was my high school drama teacher. I didn't think I had anything special about me, but she did. And it helped me to learn more about what I had to give. And that was important. And it grew me, and it allowed me to have meaning and to give back. Sometimes people have never been told that they have something to give. But in being acknowledged as a human being and being treated with respect and kindness, even if they're not behaving that way, not only are we making deposits into our spiritual bank account, but we're also shining a light for them in case they come to a point where they want to get out. In the book of Matthew, which is the book in the New Testament from which the play Godspell came, are the lines, "You are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hidden. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under a bushel basket, but on the lampstand where it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they might see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." And the way that I interpret that is so that they can see the light and it be reflected on the light that is within them. The Father in heaven, heaven is within. So that that light can shine more brightly in them, that the light that we give to the world, every little bit of it, can be reflected in somebody else and help them to find their light again, to shine it more brightly, to rekindle it. In our spiritual bank account, our attention grows its value. And so Matthew says a little later on in the book of Matthew, he quotes Jesus as saying, "Do not store up for yourself treasures on earth, not just your checking account or your investments, where moths and vermin destroy and thieves break in and steal, or when you die and can't take that along. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, spiritual treasures to draw on within, where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." In your family, in humanity, in yourself, in that inner light. And so I want to close this morning with Christian Picciolino's message to us today. Find someone who doesn't deserve your compassion and give it to them. Namaste. Let's take a moment now. I want to invite the practitioners to surround the room. Let's take a moment now for the inner work. And I'm going to invite you to put your hands over your heart. As you feel your heart beat, know that you are worthy of love exactly as you are. You always have been. It isn't because of what you've accomplished or done. It's because you are. The infinite presence of love that has manifested itself as you has given all there is. There is nothing greater you could be than the manifestation of that presence of love. It is your true identity. It is the identity of every one of us. And it is the identity of all those around us. May we see through the appearances, and even when we can't see through them, may we assume that the light is there somewhere. Amen.
Destiny, I know my way is guided by his beam. Who am I? I am the light lanterns' rings. I am the wild bone, I am the fire within. It may seem crazy, but true are all these things, because it's who am I? Dancing with the Father, I'm singing with the Lord. Listening to the Master's voice, I hear the secret chord. Surrender to the Father within, follow the ancient word. This is my Father's world, my song is heard. Thank you.
Hi, I'm a member of the Prosperity Corps. I'm Gaelen Cooper, licensed practitioner here in this community. So thank you, and you know, everybody, that the seated drum over there is like my favorite. So thank you so much. I love seated drum. And I love your message. Well, I love you and I love your message. Okay, so I'm so happy because, you know, when I usually, I'm going to say it the honest way, when I usually like cut somebody off, I always wave my hand, but I didn't know I was getting any money for it, so I'm so excited about that. So I'd love to ask the ushers to come on forward. Okay, so I have 30 seconds. So Bodhi said it, so I'm not necessarily copying, but I loved my dad, and I love him still, even though he passed on. And I use my dad, oh, actually, happy Father's Day to my husband. And I bought him some golfing shorts because my dad was a professional golfer. And that's where I learned to golf. So kind of pass it on. All right, what else did I want to say? I love everybody here, and I'm so glad everybody came today. And I guess now I get to ask the ushers to go, oh, put your hand on your heart, or your offering on your heart. There you go. All right, you guys get to go forward. And I have one more thing to say while they're going forward. I don't know if you've pledged, but when you pledge, you get a card. And on the back of the card, it says, I know that God is my source. I am grateful for all that I have to give and for all I have to receive. So I actually hadn't noticed that until today.
Gifts of the Spirit, love, joy, and peace. These are the gifts of the Spirit. Are you ready to receive? Gifts of the Spirit, love, joy, and peace. Gifts of the Spirit. Are you ready to receive? Love, are you ready? Joy, are you ready? Peace, are you ready? Are you ready to the gifts of the Spirit, love, joy, and peace. These are the gifts of the Spirit. Are you ready to receive? Gifts of the Spirit, love, joy, and peace. Are the gifts of the Spirit. Are you ready to receive? Love, are you ready? Joy, are you ready? Peace, are you ready? Are you ready to to receive? Are you ready to receive? Are you ready to receive? Yeah.
Yay.
Bring it on.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, yay. So I love this part because everybody gets to do the same thing with me. So if you would all say with me, this gift I give is God in action. I now send it forth to bless and to prosper. I know that everywhere it goes, it is creating a world living in love, one heart and one thought at a time. And so it is.
Yes. Thank you, Gaelen and Mark, for the wonderful altar. I want to bring your attention to this altar. This is an expression of spiritual wealth. And so you've got Monopoly money. You also have all of the little Monopoly cards that are like Chance and I can't remember what the other one's called, but Community Chest. But they're all the positive ones that are up here now because we're talking about the return on your investment. And we've also got some dads up there. We've got Flo. So this is an expression of spiritual wealth and abundance and also of the influence of our dads. And we take the best and leave the rest behind on those. I want to thank Jim Homa for coming in here in the middle of the night every Saturday and getting everything set up for us on Sunday. Yes, I don't know where Jim is, but thank you, Jim, wherever you are, probably doing more work for us at this moment. Thank you, Dana, for sound. Thank you, Tom and Ron and Ceci over here on the IV this morning. Thank you, practitioners who are all over here ready to pray with you following the service. If you have anything heavy on your hearts, be sure you get a mini practitioner session over here with them. Just go right over to them to get it. And let's see, I want to thank Michael Hart, who's our morning practitioner. I want to thank Bob Gordon, who stepped in at the last minute to be the welcome man this morning. I gave him like 4 seconds of notice. And I want to thank Bodie and Stephen Meese and Robin and Rick and Amanda for wonderful music this morning. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, all of you, for being here with us this morning. We're just delighted that you were here, and we hope that those of you who are here for the first time, enjoy the church in Mendocino, and when you're back this way, come and see us again, because she's going to be going up there. All right, so now I have announcements for you. Next Sunday is the men's group brunch. This is a Mediterranean brunch prepared by the men of GGCSL. It's only $10, and that will be wonderful. So come hungry, bring your Hamilton with you, and you can enjoy this wonderful brunch. If you love food, like anybody, who loves food? Okay, good, this is good. So if you love food, you might notice that in the summer months, which we're now in, almost officially, that our regular snack team takes a break. And so it's on everybody to see that there are snacks. And so you can talk to anybody. I don't even know if there are snacks over there. There's a table, but anyway, You can talk to one of the leadership council members if you have a question about the snacks team this morning. We'll get you connected to the right people to help get you set up to help with that so that we can be sure we have snacks. Now I want to bring Lydia up. Lydia wants to, she has a special announcement for you this morning, which is also about next Sunday.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mary. Good morning. I'm Lydia Lee. I'm the treasurer here. And got a little announcement. Thank you. So this is the third announcement about your leadership council is making to let people know about the special meeting of the members we're holding after services next Sunday. This announcement will be sent out again via email to all members of record coming this week. If you know somebody that doesn't have email, please get this information to them. Most of you already know that Reverend Mary Murray Shelton decided to candidate to become our new senior minister following Reverend Carroll's retirement. Yes. When she informed the council, we knew that Reverend Mary was being encouraged by many of you in our community to take this step because she's already known and loved. We had already heard from many of you ourselves about considering Reverend Mary. We interviewed Reverend Mary extensively and did our work to ensure that she is qualified and a viable candidate. We also decided to offer you, the community, an opportunity to consider Reverend Mary first as your new minister. This is called direct select. It is used occasionally if circumstances warranted. For us, those circumstances were the extent of support that we were seeing in the community. This led us to thinking that a majority of people might be interested in bypassing the usual candidating process to vote on Reverend Mary first. So that's the purpose of the town hall meeting that we're calling for all members of record. At the meeting, you'll be asked to vote on whether you want to do a direct select process or go with the usual candidating process whereby we seek candidates from all over and being the most qualified to your attention for consideration. Both the direct select and the candidating process have pros and cons you should think about. After service today, Council President Pat Sandry, Vice President Lori Gear, and I will be available up here in the front of the pulpit to answer questions. Also, Reverend Mary has agreed to be available for questions and conversation. In addition, she's prepared a summary of her background and ministerial experience to share with those who would like it. The Leadership Council have created a process for collecting absentee ballots because we know many people will be away on June 24th, and this is too important a step in our collective journey to not have your voices heard. Absentee ballots and envelopes are on the education table under the watchful eye of Gail Durkin, who will be the point person for collecting and counting them. There's only 3 questions, so it's not a really big deal. I mean, it's a big deal, but it doesn't take a lot of time. Just 3 questions. At the town hall meeting itself, we'll make time for a question and answer discussion with the council and with Reverend Mary. People will have the opportunity to express their opinions before any voting is done. All of this will be done with respect and attention and integrity because that's who we are. Ballots of those present will be completed and anonymously and turned in for counting right then and there. If the direct select option is chosen by a simple majority vote, we'll move immediately to voting on Reverend Mary herself. We think it's important that you know that in a direct select process, Reverend Mary needs a 2/3 vote of all members present and the absentee ballots to become our new minister. Please understand that your leadership council is not endorsing a certain option, the direct select option or the candidating option. We are merely offering the 2 options to you so that we know your collective will, and we are here to serve the community and do the best to do that. And the best way to do that is to listen to you. So please mark your calendars to attend the meeting. Come talk to us about your questions. Be sure to talk with Reverend Mary, and remember that God is guiding us all along the way. There can be no bad outcome. If you think there's any chance you're not going to be here next Sunday, go over to that table and vote, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. And I just want to make sure that you understand that the absentee ballots are due tomorrow. So if you have not filled out an absentee ballot and sent it in, then do that today so that your voice is heard. Go ahead and fill it out and then leave it, because that'll be important for the vote next week. All right, for those of you that are experiencing birthdays in the Gemini session that we're in the middle of right now, if you go over to the practitioner table, you can fill out a form that will allow you to get a free birthday checkup. That's for members. So if you're a member, you're having a birthday as a Gemini, go over there and get your questionnaire and sign up for your thing. Women's Spirit Rising Retreat is coming up in September. You can talk to Lori Greer, who's over here at the prac table. If you have questions about the retreat, be sure and talk to her. It's at Rivers Bend Retreat Center this year. Also, sign up today for Reverend Carol's workshops in July. These are workshops that the community has requested of her. She's got 2 more, Conscious Endings and How to Download a Talk from Spirit. Also remember that during July, when she gets back, she's going to be doing giveaways every Sunday of jewelry and clothing and goddess things and altar stuff. So you'll want to be here for that. The Bon Voyage Soiree for Reverend Carol is coming up on July 21st from 6 to 9 p.m. It's going to be happening right here. And we need your RSVPs, either to Deborah or to Sue Ruda. There will be champagne, there will be noshas, there will be surprises, there will be all kinds of good things. And the other thing to be aware of is that there will be a gift. Now the party, even though we're calling it her surprise soiree, she knows about the party. What she doesn't know about is the gift. So you can make contributions to the gift at the education table over here. And Deborah, would you like to say more about this?
Yes, just a couple things. So far,
be aware that this is streaming.
Okay.
So far, we have 89 people who have RSVP'd, and I'm probably expecting double that for the people who are coming. So please let me know. My phone number and Sue's phone number is on the bulletin this week to call us in RSVP. Next week, there will be the membership lists where you could just check it off. And also, there is a plastic box over here where you can still donate money. We're still looking for a little bit more money for the soiree and the gift. So I'm looking forward to this. It is going to be a great, great party. Thanks.
And thank you, Deborah Welsh. She's the head of the events team.
One more thing. There's no cost, so please come.
Right. There's no admission charge for the soiree. We hope that you'll be there. All right. So take hands with the people around you and stand up right now, would you? As we recognize and know that as a community, we are much more powerful than as individuals alone. That as a community, we are a vibration of blessing in the world. So take a breath and take that vibration into yourself that's here present in the room. Let it first bless you right here and right now. And I invite you to join me now in the affirmation and then the closing song. Whoops. And the affirmation is, say this with me as soon as I find it here. All right. I'm cultivating spiritual riches and investing in my spiritual bank account now. Kindness, gratitude, love, and practice are my gentle path, and so it is. It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart and open up for